Do you ever wish life just had a pause button? Just like a moment where you could stop all the demands, catch up on your endless to-do list, finally make that dentist appointment, or just freaking breathe for just like a second? And if you are a people-pleasing woman with ADHD, my guess is that your schedule reflects a whole lot of other people's needs rather than your own. This was me and so many of the ADHD women that I've worked with and spoken to. And eventually I had to face the truth. Nothing was going to change unless I changed something about the way that I was operating. And when I started building this one thing into my schedule, everything started to shift for the better. The good news? It can for you too. So this magical ingredient that turned out to make my life so much better so quickly was actually really simple. It was rest. Now maybe you can't even imagine a life that feels less overwhelming, much less a life that includes actual restorative rest. Or maybe you can imagine a life that includes rest, but you imagine that it must include really elaborate systems or a bunch of hacks or apps or planners or all of the above. And these are all things that you know your ADHD brain is going to fail at eventually. But here's the truth. Not only is this possible, it is actually essential. And yes, it can be ADHD friendly, sustainable, and life-changing. Energy is everything, and recovery is how you get it. And elite athletes and creatives and entrepreneurs all know this. They don't rest after they do the thing. Rest is actually part of the job, part of the process. And it should be for us too. So in this video, we're going to cover 4 key things. 1, what does rest actually mean for ADHD brains? Very important question. Number 2, why do we need rest and why it's so hard when you have ADHD? Number 3, how to make space for rest in your already packed schedule. And number 4, how to deal with the dreaded S words. More on that later. I'm Tiff, a neuroscience professor with a PhD and ADHD and a mom of 2. And I'm here to help women with ADHD like you go from barely surviving to truly thriving, energetic, empowered, and confident so that you can build a life you love in harmony with your ADHD brain. That's what I do here on this channel, and we dive even deeper with the amazing women in my program, the ADHD Success Lab. Now let's talk about how to finally stop running on empty and start refilling that tank. Number 1, what is rest really? Rest is anything that fills you up, relaxes your nervous system, and restores your energy. That's it. Rest is not always quiet or still or what someone else in your life might consider relaxing. In fact, for some ADHD brains, too much rest and stillness drives boredom, and this can actually feel painful for ADHD brains. Because here's the truth. If a rest strategy makes you feel more agitated than restored, it is not actually a rest strategy. It is, in fact, a waste of time and a drain on your already very limited energy. There are actually no rules here. You get to decide what counts as rest for you. With one exception. Mindless scrolling doesn't count. If you're going on your phone to scroll on purpose and it's something that lifts your mood, fine, limit the time. But if you're just mindlessly scrolling, you don't even know what you're looking for and just hours are draining away, that is dissociating. That is not the same as rest. And your brain isn't going to count it the same way. Here are a few examples of things that work for me in case they might work for you. 1, a long, meaningful hug from my kids. Sipping coffee and journaling alone or in a quiet corner of my house. A walk outside, whether it's out in nature or just walking from my car to the office without my phone out. Taking a deep breath and looking at the sky. Playing board games or pickleball with my husband. Notice some of these are physical, some of these are still, some of these are alone, and some of these are social. So there really are no rules. Find what feels good to you and ditch the Instagram version of self-care, unless that's what you find restful. That brings us to number 2. Why do we struggle so much to rest? Physical hyperactivity can make this a huge struggle, but if you're someone that needs to be active and that's what restores you, I encourage you to find those things because physical tired and mental tiredness are not quite the same thing. If you need to be active, be active. Another huge problem is that women with ADHD in particular are often putting everyone else ahead of themselves. Before ever getting to what we actually need, it keeps getting pushed further and further down the list and it never actually happens. Over time, this is actually going to teach your brain that you are less valuable than everyone else, which you aren't, and that your needs aren't as valid as the needs of others, which they are. Or maybe you grew up learning rest is lazy or selfish or a waste of time. But here's the truth. Your brain needs time to wander, restore, and reset without any demands on where it's going. So that doesn't mean being still or quiet or bored. It just means allowing your mind to naturally wander and giving it a break from constantly being on. Because rest fuels creativity, problem solving, learning, neuroplasticity. That is when all the connections are made when your brain is not being active. As a scientist and a mom, I can say that my biggest and best breakthroughs, like professionally and for life, have never come when I am overwhelmed or running around like a crazy person or a chicken with my head cut off. They happen when I'm doing things like driving in my car or taking a shower, doing sort of physically automatic things where my brain is free to wander. It's also really important for emotional regulation because this is when your brain will either consciously or subconsciously be processing the things that have happened to you throughout the day or the week. And that's important time to actually deal with your emotions so that they don't get suppressed and bubble up to the surface later. So how do you actually make space for rest when your schedule is already jam-packed? Great question. And this brings us to number 3, how to build in rest. It starts with reclaiming control over our time. And this is where it's important to accept the fact that you are ultimately responsible for what you spend time doing and who you're spending your time with. And it's time to get really honest with yourself about what is truly necessary, or what are you doing out of people pleasing or guilt, or kind of just automatically agreeing to things because you don't have the bandwidth to stop and consider whether this is something you should be spending your time doing. I have lots of videos with specifics on this on my channel, so definitely check those out, but here are some ideas. You can eliminate or delegate non-essential tasks. And again, be really honest about what is an essential, important task for you. Another one is to limit time with the people that drain your energy. You are not actually obligated to subject yourself to people that suck away all of your energy. And you're definitely not obligated to spend excessive amounts of time with those people. And I know this one can be hard. Speaking from personal experience, I can promise you that reducing these times with people that do this for you will actually have a massive impact, not just on the opening of the time, but actually on your mental health and your energy levels in general. So you'll actually feel better and have more energy, and you'll have more time. Another one is blocking time on your calendar for you and honoring it as you would like an important work meeting or somewhere you need to be for your kids. Another one is to be present for moments where something is actually energizing to you. There are probably a lot of things happening throughout your day that make you feel happy or calm or peaceful, even small moments, that you are just not present for because you're always thinking about the next thing or something that happened that day. So for me, this looked like being more present when I was giving my kids a hug and making that hug just a little bit extra long and more connecting for us. Another easy one for me was keeping my phone in my pocket while I was walking outside and just taking a deep breath and enjoying the fact that I was outside looking at the sky and experiencing that with my senses. These were tiny ones that made a huge difference for me, and I didn't have to change anything about how my schedule was organized. So these were easy ones to start doing. So I encourage you to find those moments in your day. And the last one is to actually just do an energy audit. I have a really simple version of one of these that we use in the ADHD Success Lab, and that's linked in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. So start very small, pick just one thing that fills your cup a little bit more than you were doing before, and protect it like it matters, because it does. You might be thinking, I would love to make time for myself, but I just can't. Too many people need me, and it would feel selfish to look out for myself. And this brings us to number 4, eliminating the S words. Let's talk about these big blockers: shame and should. Women with ADHD carry around so much shame about the way that we interact with others and about doing things for ourselves. I have heard these things from so many women with ADHD. I shouldn't be tired. I haven't done that much. I'll rest after I finish everything. No, you won't. Too many people need me, and I can't slow down. I have too much to do. So here are some powerful reframes that I have used myself, and game changers, okay? My biggest one was that I rest because so many people need me. When I started to look at making sure that I was rested, that I was getting time to recover as part of my job as a mom, as a wife, as a scientist, as a professor, this reframe changed everything, because I've realized when I do that, I show up better. I can actually do more when I rest, but I have to prioritize doing that. Otherwise, they're getting a very, very watered down version and non-functional and unhappy version of me. I can guarantee you my kids would rather have a mom that has taken a little bit of time for herself and then is actually present when I play with them or I want to engage with them than the other way around, which was the way it was before. And then I felt like a bad mom then anyway. Another one is we need to flip this idea that rest needs to be earned. Rest should actually come first, okay? Rest is more important than productivity, because you cannot be productive if you are so drained and need to rest. You'll actually be less productive. Then you'll feel more ashamed. Then you won't rest because you're ashamed of how little you've gotten done. And this cycle will just continue forever and ever and ever. Rest is more important. Rest before productivity. And this idea of I'll sleep when I'm dead, actually, you will literally be dead faster if you never rest. and you'll be more miserable on the way there. So again, when I started to release the shame, and this is like work in progress, always, probably till I die, I found myself showing up better for me and others, and it just builds on itself. And because your brain is flexible, because of neuroplasticity, you can reteach yourself that you are actually important to invest in and spend time on, as long as you're willing to practice, as long as you're willing to try. Because here's the truth, rest is not a luxury, rest is actually mandatory. You will become the version of you that has the clarity and the bandwidth and the energy to build a life you love, that works for you and that is sustainable. If you want to go deeper on ADHD and energy, watch this video next.